In this video, I'm going to show you how I put an extension cable onto my NEMA 23 stepper motor and also installed a aviation style plug. This is to be used for my rotary accessory for my 80-watt laser. During this video, you're going to notice that my right hand is shaking quite a lot. I have Parkinson's disease, but it is what it is. Just wanted to explain. If I can do it, pretty much anybody can do it. The stepper motor comes with approximately 18 inches of wiring. This is probably not enough to reach your laser's aviation plug, at least not for mine. As part of the kit, I've provided approximately 30 inches of additional wire, which will require some soldering work. I've also provided the aviation style plug that is used on my laser and most other lasers. This will also require some delicate soldering work for installation. If the existing wire is long enough for your laser, then skip the extension part of these instructions. Straighten out the wires and get them as even as possible. Then take the wires and snip the ends approximately 3/4 of an inch from the previous one. This will help your installation of shrink tubing later on. Take the two pieces of the shortest shrink tubing and place them onto the ends of the wiring. After placing onto the end, making sure you have all 4 wires inside the 2 pieces of tubing, slide them down to the end of the wiring closest to the motor and just let them sit there for the time being. We will shrink them in place later. If you have not done it as of yet, you need to strip the ends of the wiring approximately 3/8 of an inch from the ends. Now it's time to pre-tin the ends of the wire. Now it is time to pre-tin the ends of the wire. Apply heat to the wire and then the solder. Goes pretty quick. Get too much on it, just kind of rake it off. And that should do it. Now, do the same thing with the extension wires. I'm just doing one at a time because I can't hold them all at the same time. So I just take one strand out and heat and tin just as the same way as the other ones were done. This wire is going to be a heavier gauge wire because I had 18 gauge wire available, and I'm hooking it up to the 20 gauge wire that is on the stepper motor. This extra size, little larger gauge wire is not going to cause any problems. If anything, it helps. Do one at a time. I've got these little magic fingers, or whatever you want to call them, set up here where I can hold wires into place. Believe me, if you ever have the choice of having Parkinson's disease, don't have it. Doesn't kill you, but it just makes your life a little miserable. Now, the next step is to take the individual wires from the stepper motor and connect them to color to color. Now, in my particular case, some of the insulation, plastic insulation cover melted back a little bit, so the wire is just a tad a little long. So I'm going to cut them off just slightly. You only need about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch, if even that much. Now, in my particular case, I'm going to take a second here to orient these magic fingers to hold the wires in place for me. I have now lined up the two wires and will now solder these together. If you've got enough tin on it, when I say tin, that means the electrical solder, just only have to heat this up and they should join together. If you need a little extra dab of solder, then use it. I used to be quite a bit better at this when I was doing my remote control planes and drones, but I gave that up because of the Parkinson's. I will not say Parkinson's again the rest of this video. My apologies. So anyway, do this for each of your 4 wires. After you do each one, just simply take a nice tug. I'm really tugging pretty hard here, and they should not come off. I'm going to stop the video now until I get the other 3 wires done. After you've completed soldering the 4 wires together, remembering that the white wire will be attached to the blue wire, at least for this current kit. If I make future kits, I will get the proper colored wire. Take yellow shrink tubing and place one over each individual wire. And the red one. And then slide them down to the newly attached soldered points. Just get them close for the time being. Maybe slip them over. And then I dropped the one on the red, so I've got to go back and put that one on. Move the yellow heat shrink tubing over the soldered joint. Center it up as best as possible. Using a heat source of some type, you need to shrink the tubing. Now you can use a lighter. Make sure you don't get too close. Let the heat come up into it. Melt the, not melt, but shrink the tubing. This is your best insulation on that point. Now, I actually have a small miniature heat gun which is meant for this type of thing, and I'll be using it on future connections. Here is the blue/white wire using the gun. Does an excellent job, and there's less likelihood of damage to the wiring, but use whatever you've got. Do the other 2 connections the same way. Now, at this time, I would recommend that you take the 2 previous short pieces of shrink tubing and straighten the wires out, pulling a little taut, and position them several inches apart. The whole purpose for these shrink tubes at this point is to just kind of keep the wires together and make it a little orderly. What I'm going to do is use my heat gun, and shrink these down. Don't sit there trying to heat all day. They'll only shrink down to a certain point. Once it stops shrinking, might as well just stop putting the heat to it, because you'll do nothing but damage the wires if you keep overheating. Now, I have provided in the kit also a couple of these longer pieces. If you want to chop them up and put more in, that's up to you. But these are 4, and I'm going to do that now. No scissors handy, so I will simply use my cutter. No, I won't. Just use a knife. Simply go to the end of the wire, thread it through, making sure that you're over all 4 wires. Slip it down. This comes up to the point of why I had you cut the wires at different lengths, and this is why, so that everything doesn't bundle up in one spot. I'll get it here in a minute. This is another reason why I had you put those other 2 on early. Maybe you might ought to put 3 on but it's your own choice. Once again, pull the wires so that you don't get a loop with the other. Try to keep the wires evenly spaced apart. Stretch. Now, take one of the longer, what I would do, totally up to you, I would try to get a piece of shrink tubing around this area here. What we can do at this point is try to take the wire, come up till you get to the end, because now you should have all the wires at different lengths there. After you get all the slack out and all the wires are together, cut off all 4 wires to the same length. Double check. This is very important. Trying to keep this in the frame. Mine are pretty close, but I'm going to trim up just a little bit more. Now, take the long piece that's left, slip it over the 4 wires, take it down to the yellow shrink tubing. Could be a little tight, but try to work it around and just try to get it in as best as possible. What we're doing is we're trying to put a little bit of extra protection for these connections. Now, looks like we're going to be a little short, so that's what the other piece is for. It'll basically go on there the same. This step is optional, purely up to you, but I would heat the shrink tube up now while it's in place. Try to get these wrinkles out while you can. Now, got a little wrinkle here in the blue wire, which is the blue/white wire. You should be able to take a little by gently pulling and then back again, and you get it all about the same length. Slipping this over, if you can slightly go over the other, it's not that big of a deal. If you don't, yep, there we go. It's exposed here for a little bit, but that's okay. Heat it back up. Now, let's go ahead and move up and put in a couple more pieces of shrink tubing, the short pieces. Place over the ends again. Always make sure you're over all 4 wires. This little heat gun is a nifty little thing that I've had for several years. Okay, let's put one more piece on and then we'll move on to the next step. As soon as I can find it. Okay, now do a final check on your wire, making sure everything, all the slack is out, all in the even row. Come up to your end, and I'm going to go ahead and put one more piece of shrink tube on. Now, making sure everything is same length. Do a final check on your wire lengths. Pretty close, but I'm going to trim just one more time. Alright, now the next step, critical, is to nip off about 3/16 of an inch. Not that long, you really don't need that much. Matter of fact, yeah, about 3/16 is about how much you want, because what you're going to be doing is, well, we'll get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and strip 3/16 of an inch. Just an eyeball will do. I'll get to that. I'll expose that in a minute. Okay, I have stripped the insulation off the 3/16 off the ends. And now I want to take my solder and pre-tin these 4 points. Now we're going to change gears here and prep the aviation plug. Put this stuff off to the side. And if you've got a little dollop of solder on the ends, that's okay. That's actually not a bad thing. And I'll show you here in a bit. But first, let's put that out of the way and get your aviation plug out. This is, in my particular case, this is a 4-pin, 2-phase, I believe it's a GTX 16 4, meaning it's, I'm trying to get it, there we go. And what we need to do is we need to get the screwdriver. There is a, try to see if I get this where it'll show up better. Need to take a miniature screwdriver and remove 3 screws. And in my instructions you'll find that I recommend you put these into a cup or container of some sort so you don't lose them, because it's very easy, because this is a very small screw. If you look at the slot, the end, there's a slot along the side. Right at the end of that slot, onto the silver part of the connector, is a very small screw. Need to take that screw out. Trying to get it where you can see that. Hard to see, but it's a very small screw. Put it into your container or on a magnet, and take when now that's the only thing holding the black plastic inner part from the outside container, outside containment. This is the first one that's wanting to fight me. They usually just fall right out. Well, that one was a little embarrassing. The plug was a manufacturer's defect. But basically, this is another one. Take the screw out, and then it just pulls should pull right out. Give it a little twist, comes out. Put the black off to the side for a second. Now you need to take the clamp portion off at the end. There's 2 screws. I'm kind of slow. That's what happens when you get old. I'll speed up the tape. Now, like I said, put the parts once you're into the container. You do not want to lose these. Put your container off to the side because that will be, when you put those back on, will be the very end of the instruction. Now, what we need to do is I'm going to take a break here for a second. Okay, did a little bit of cleanup. And now what we need to do is to put the remaining parts onto the wire. And it's semi-important that you put this stuff on in the following order. Here's the point that we have previously shrunk down into the wire. Now put your casing, silver part of your plug, with the clamp in on first. Put it on like that. Slide it down as far as you can, just get it out of the way. Next one is to put the green shrink tubing. It's a little overkill, but what the heck. Put it over all 4 wires once again. Slide it down at least to the point where the one that you've already shrunk, once again just shove it down out of the way. Now all the previous black pieces were 1/4 inch. This is short piece, but it's fatter, and that is a 3/8 inch. And it's kind of important that you have at least one end squared off. This one's on a little bit of an angle, one end, but that's not that big of a deal as long as you put the squared off end if you do have a piece where it's angled, put the angled piece in first. If not, if both are angled a little bit, then take a pair of scissors and cut off so that it is got a square end. Put the angled end piece first. If they're both square, so much the better, but you want the square end towards the end of the wire. Once again, slip down, put it out of the way for the time being. Now comes the tricky part. I have to, well, what I need to do is show you. This is the connector, actual physical connector. The hat has 4 pins, places. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Using a webcam. I'm going to solder these to the points. Now, looking at the end, I'm trying to focus it and it doesn't want to focus. But if you will look at the points here where the connectors are at, each one of these are numbered. It is very important that you put the right wire to the right pin or your motor will not work. Okay, basically if you take it and get it where it shines into the light, you'll see where it's embossed into the plastic. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hard to see. 1, 2, 3, 4 in a counterclockwise motion. Now, what you need to do is put for number 1, and in the instructions, and I will put a graphic up somewhere showing, maybe in the description or following this section, that shows which one goes to what. But basically, number 1 is the black wire. Number 2 is the green wire. Number 3 is the red wire. And number 4 is the blue wire, or in this particular case, the white wire that was put into the kit. So 1 black, 2 green, 3 is number red, number 3 is red, and number 4 is blue. And I'll get set up here in a second. Okay, I have now set up a little system to hold the plug into position while I solder in the parts. Now I'm going to go in order, but it doesn't matter your order as long as you get the right color to the right pin. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you get one or get a couple of them out of order, you probably will not work. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to put this black wire into pin number 1. Wished I had another set of these because I'm having difficulty. My motor control is not that good anymore. I'm a retired civil engineer at 65 years old and I have tremors. So you just kind of make things work for you as best as they can. There. Now, if there's enough solder on the end of the tinning, this is where I said that put the little dollop. Try not to melt the plastic. Get a little bit more solder on this. There we go. Go. Kind of give it a little tug. If it doesn't come off, you've done good. Now, removing my out of my little setup that I got, rotating it to pin 2. This is the most difficult stage, but yet also the most critical. Number 2 is green. Set pliers over here because I need to bend that end over just a little bit. There we go. Yeah. I think that was a good one. Give it a test. Yep. That one's pretty good. Wouldn't hurt to check as you go in to make sure you got your orientations right. Yep. We're now working on number 3. Number 3 is red. Get it back into my little setup. Got somebody to help you out if you don't have one of these. I call them magic fingers. I don't know exactly what to call it, but it sure has come in handy. 3, check again. Red. Now, please save your comments on my soldering skills. I used to be a lot better at this. Okay. Shows you how old my solder is. Radio Shack. Probably had this roll of wire 25, 30 years. Roll of solder. Okay, heat that up one more time. Oh, that did it. Release the wire. Give it a little tug. Yeah, that's in there good. And the last one, which is number 4. Number 4 is blue, or in our case, white, because we got the white extension put onto the blue wire. Use what you got. Keeps costs down. Basically donating this wire to my current kit because I want to get this out as cheap as possible and put a lot of time and effort in this thing. Had someone else helping you, it'd probably be a lot easier. Okay, last one. Yeah, there we go. If that is good, we are done with soldering. So, before you go any further, grab a hold of the black plastic, test each wire, give it a pull. Don't pull too hard, you might actually pull the thing out of the socket, but it shouldn't come out. Give a nice, good, secure, snug pull. And if it does come out, it should slip right back in. They're just a little catch. And yep, I am done. Now, take the wires, try to just kind of give them a little squeeze, trying to get everything centralized. Now you want to make sure that there's no cross connection between the wires. Looks like I did a pretty good job. And like I said, if I can do it, there's no reason anybody else shouldn't be able to do it. I'm going to interrupt the regular video right now because I got to thinking after the entire project was wired that we should have tested the soldering of the joints for the connector prior to going forward with the rest of the shrink tubing, which will come after this little section is over. So what we want to do is we want to take a electrical tester, if you have one. You want to put it onto continuity. You want to check to see if you have a open or closed circuit on certain pins. Now if you look at the connector, you see this little flute at the top of the connector. This means the right and left side. So this is pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4. If you look very closely at the end up here, you're going to see I can't really get this web camera to focus. But embossed on the plastic is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Goes in a counterclockwise motion. 1, 2, 3, and 4. What you want to do is you want to test to see if you have a closed circuit between 1 and 2. Hear that tone? That's telling me that we have a closed circuit. We want to test between 3 and 4. Closed circuit. That's good. That part means you probably wired everything right. Now, as a double check, you can put one of your probes in 1 and check on the opposite side just to make sure you haven't short-circuited something, and go to 1 to 3. No sound. That means you have an open circuit. That's good. 1 to 4. No sound. Open circuit. That is good. Now let's put the probe into 2. You go over to 3. No sound. That's good. Go to 4. No sound. That's good. This means that you did all your soldering correct. Very, very important that you make sure that this has been done. If you're not going to short anything out, it just basically the motor will not work if you don't have these points exactly wired up correctly. So remember, 1 to 2 is what you want to have a closed circuit. 3 to 4 you want to have a closed circuit. Any other combination you want to have open circuits where it does not signal on your electrical tester. Now, once you make that and you've got everything right, continue on with the video. Here we go. Okay, now going back to your shrink tubing, take the black shorter piece. It's about 5/8 of an inch long, half an inch long, and bring it up. Get it as close to the point as possible. Go over the wire connections. Do not go over this black plastic part. Past this point right here. Let me get the solder out of the way. Let me see if I can get something that doesn't shine. Oh, should have did this before. So get it up here. Let me go back here. Do not put this shrink tubing past this point here. What you're trying to do is to cover up the wire connections, not else, because the silver metal is going to slide up over this. If you get the shrink tubing past this point, you're not going to get the silver cover into place. Okay, slide the shrink tubing up to there. Take your heat source. If you're using a match, be careful not to melt the plastic. That's why I really like this heat gun. What I like doing is before you get it all the way, go up, give it one more last tug to get it close to the butt as possible. What you're doing is you're basically adding a protective layer between the grounding of the silver cover that's back on the wire, and just basically for protection so you don't get a short. That's pretty doggone good. Probably the best one I've ever done. Ooh, a little warm. Cools down rather rapidly, but just kind of give them a squeeze, try to get them in a circular pattern. Makes the next couple steps a little easier. Okay, now slide the next part, which is the green shrink tubing, up into place. Once again, this is real overkill. I had a lot of it available, so I'm just using it. You want to get that up as far in as you can. You're not going to get up all the way. You're just, luckily, if you get up to this point here. Because this is where, when you plug it in, when you take and you plug this into the laser, wire is going to want to bend, so you're going to make a little extra protection here. Wished I had a 5/16 shrink tubing, but once again, you use what you got. 3/8 might have been better, but use what you got. Okay, got it up as far as you can, and start shrinking it down. Give it a second to cool down. No need to burn yourself. Okay, now that it's cooled down a little bit, bring your silver cover of the aviation plug up into position. Now, what you need to do, it only goes on one way. Find the groove that's along this edge right here. Right below it is where the screw will go in. Find the screw hole on the silver. So these 3 points need to line up. So, screw hole in the casing, screw hole into the black plug, and right there's the slot. So slide it up and into position. Just to let you know, there's a little dimple on the other side. Don't confuse that for the slot hole. Might have to use a little persuasion to get that last 1/8 of an inch. But you're pushing, you're not pulling, so it should work. There. Heard her snap into place. Once again, slot, hole. As long as you got that put up together, the screws should go into position. So let's pull out our container. Find the very small, teeny tiny screw. That thing's not more than 1/8 of an inch long. Miniature Phillips screwdriver. Should screw right in. If it doesn't go, it means you haven't lined it up right. Want to get in there as best you can, but you also don't want to over strip it out. Haven't stripped one out yet. Okay, that's there. We're into the home stretch. Now, make sure you kind of get your wire in there as best you can. Take your clamp. Now this is basically the same uniform. It doesn't matter which side it goes. What this is basically it's got some ribs on it that clamps down onto the wires to keep it so that when you pull, you don't pull it out of the receptacle. Let me see if I can get this. There we go. Where's my screwdriver? Guess I should put it on first. Yep. Well, let's try something different. Having a doozy of a time. Let's put it through the hole first. Told you this was the most difficult part. Once you get it started, you're in good shape. Key being, you got to get it started. Well, after a lot of struggle, I was able to get the 2 screws back in position. I did not tighten them all the way down, because what you need to do when you tighten these, do not tighten one all the way down and then do the other one. Do about halfway with one, then halfway with the other, and then taking turns, working your way, tighten this down. Don't try to take it all in one shot. Tighten as far as you feel safe. Don't want to cut the wire, but I don't think it's possible as long as you've done the previous steps correctly. Just tighten down until it goes to refusal. Pretty good job. Now, as long as this screw is down, the little tiny screw that's put in, you make sure you got that down far enough so that this retainer ring, this locking nut, is able to slide over that. If it's down that far, then you're in good shape. Okay, that concludes the wiring. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to set up so that we can test this out on the laser itself. Okay, this is my 80-watt red-black Chinese laser. What we're going to do now is we're going to test the motor and make sure it works. What you do is you come in, unscrew the Y-axis stepper motor plug, unplug it, put it off to the side. Take your new plug that's connected to the motor that you're doing. Turn it around until it drops into place. It only goes one way. I'll get it in a minute. Once it drops into place, it should be plugged in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the off the Rueda controller, and we're going to test in the Y direction, and hopefully this thing turns. Get your up and down arrow, and it works. So we're now complete, done and checked. We should be in great shape. If you try to turn the motor right now, it will not, because it's in a brake situation. So the motor should not turn. Everything's right. Much better. Okay, that completes the electrical wiring connections for the stepper motor. Here's what the wire basically looks like in its current setup. It pretty much stays out of the way. Now what I wanted to show you here is what I did on the original model that I made. Original rotary. What I did is I had a shielded cable shield that you can buy on Amazon. And this one is, I believe, let me find a tape measure. That's what I thought. It's 3/8 of an inch. It works really well, but however, it's very hard to get on. What it is, it's a hard plastic, not a flexible plastic sheeting that split down the middle. You can actually see right here. It's kind of hard to do. I'm going to take out a little bit. So basically what you do is you work your way down. Very hard to put on, but it works really well. It basically just keeps all the cable hidden, out of the way, and very neat. But that's up to you. If you want to buy one on Amazon, I will provide a link. There's also another style which is a more flexible sheeting that you can get that should work. I will put both links down into the description. But what this all basically is for this what I'm going to call, I don't even know what to call it, my homemade rotary attachment for laser. Now, just as I'm making another video on how to put this together, I'm selling kits for this setup with everything included except for glue and the stepper motor itself. I'm pretty much thinking that you can buy your own stepper motor. I will give the link to the motor that I bought, which is Stepper Online from Amazon. If you do purchase it, let me get a pointer here. Make sure you get the right one, because this model number that's right here 23HS 22-2804S. The first one I bought was cheaper, and right here where it says HS on this original model says an HE. This is an HE. What the E stands for is economy. The HS on this one stands for standard. They're about $5 or $6 difference in price. Do not cheap out and get the cheaper model. Get the standard one. The difference, not that it's overloaded and so forth, it's just that the motor gets really hot if it stays plugged in for a long time. Stepper motors are reputedly known for getting warm, or very warm. Actually, some guy showed it on a video of the stepper motor frying an egg. That's okay. I'm going to actually replace this motor with this HS model at a later time. If you happen to get the HE model, just don't use it for a long period of time. Plug it in, get your model, your engraving done, then unplug it. But like I said, go with the HS model. Worth the extra bucks. Well, this concludes my video. I apologize for everything that I've done. I'm not used to this. This is the first video that I've ever made. I hope that this worked out well for you. I'm going to teach myself how to video edit videos, and I'm apologizing after this is all over with. I hope you stayed to the end. So we'll talk to you soon, and hopefully you'll see about purchasing. I'll leave a link on where to send information and requests for a quote on these. I'm probably going to sell the kit for about $110 plus shipping. And you have pretty much the only thing you got to do is buy your own motor and your own glue and your soldering equipment. All the rest of the parts, bearings, screws, nuts that are on this, I will provide. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll look at my next video.